And with us in the studio we have Dr. Philip Warren, who is Professor of Educational Administration at Memorial. He is the author of the Royal Commission on Education in Newfoundland. He's a distinguished Canadian administrator in addition to being a distinguished Newfoundland administrator. Phil, I'm going to start off with a quote from Rhodes and Paul, and they say that the future of special education rests upon the emerging philosophies of education and in the ability of educators to provide leadership in rational change of the educational system. Could you perhaps outline what you think are some of the attributes of a good administrator?
Well, I would call him a good administrator is a good leader. And I think that's a key term in the quotation that you made there. And a good leader has certain human skills, the ability to work with people, the ability to motivate, the ability to stimulate people to work hard. He has certain technical skills, managerial skills. He certainly has to be able to organize and plan and budget and timetable and things like that. He has certain educational skills or attributes. He's got to understand curriculum development. He's got to understand the learning process, something about teaching and learning. And I think a good administrator, a good leader, has to be creative. He has to have vision, to look down the road, to stimulate other people, to try new ideas, to innovate, to change. So these are some of the characteristics I would suggest of a good leader, and certainly we need these things in education today, in special education, in all aspects of education.
It sounds very much like in medicine, where people are always talking about when are the recent journals coming out and who has read them and are they abreast of their field. And I think it's professionals. And from what you're saying, that the creative administrator would have to be in line with the trends that are going on in education and the various new developments in the field.
Yeah, I would say that in any enterprise, leadership is vital, whether it's in the country or in an industry, during a war, in an educational system.
Yes.
And I think it's vital, the degree to which you can translate policies into programs, principles into action, is determined largely by the leadership. Now, I'm not saying teachers are not important in the school system. They're the key, but a good principle will ensure, I think, that a good program is provided. I think the keystone, a principle is a keystone in the arch of education.
Even more so than the additional up-the-line administrators?
Well, these are important. The supervisors and the superintendents certainly clear the way for principals to do their job and for teachers to do their job. But what happens in the school, I think, is vitally important, because there's where teachers need feedback. There's where the action is at the school level. And I think a lot of research recently indicates that that if you're going to really change things, you have to change the attitudes and so on at the school level. District workshops are important, but I think you really should, if you're going to innovate and change, you've got to work with teachers and principals in individual schools rather than in large groups of schools or in the province as a whole.
I see.
Right. You mentioned to me earlier that in Newfoundland just recently there's been a change in legislation, amendment to the Educations Act, which in your point of view certainly is going to change things and is going to require drastic changes in terms of our perception of special education. Would you like to maybe explain the basic tenor of the amendment?
Well, in the fall of '79, rather quietly I would suggest,
yes,
an amendment to the Schools Act was introduced in the House and passed in the House of Assembly and enacted, which made it mandatory that school boards in the province provide special classes, special programs for handicapped children with physical, or what I think the term used was mental handicaps.
Oh, I see.
And before that time, this was discretionary, that boards didn't have to do it. They were encouraged to do it. But in '79, the fall of '79, that amendment was introduced and passed by the House of Assembly. And I think that's a landmark piece of legislation. I think it was overshadowed by the debate on grade 12 and the task force and so on. But I think that's one of the most important pieces of legislation that's gone through our House of Assembly in some time.
It seems vitally important.
I think it's the beginning of a Bill of Rights for handicapped children in this province. And if school boards can't provide the educational opportunities themselves, they are required by this piece of legislation to arrange it with another board or with some other body, whether it's a school for the blind in Halifax or a school for the deaf. And I think that piece of legislation, that amendment, has tremendous implications for all of us and especially for educational administrators. Very important piece.
We apparently are one of the leaders in this field because, to my knowledge, there are only a couple other provinces that have enacted this type of legislation. Saskatchewan, I think, is one, and Nova Scotia is another. So
Yeah.
we're moving to the fore in this.
Well, I think the big question now is, are we willing and able to implement that? We have the legislation. The principle has been enunciated. Now, do we have the staff? Do we have the facilities and the funds, the personnel, to implement that, to provide the kinds of programs for our children that they need? And I think if we do that, we're going to be in the lead. And it's encouraging to see this province take that initiative in 1979, which was the International Year of the Child. It's similar to a piece of legislation introduced in the United States some time ago, Public Law 94142,
yes.
which you write about in your articles, which said basically the same thing. I think now we need to spell it out, and we need to get leadership so that we would move towards the implementation of that piece of legislation.
Do you see it as a type of the implementation as a type of thing that could take place very quickly over a period of time? Would you say maybe 1 or 2 years, or during the 80s, or how long would you expect that would
Well,
take us?
it's a very slow and costly process, this process of providing equality of educational opportunity. This is what it aims to do, and we've moved over the last 15 or 20 years in that direction in this province, and I think we could take the 80s. I've said on other occasions that 1979 was the International Year of the Child. Maybe the 80s in this province should be the decade of the child, and for us to do for so-called handicapped children, children with learning difficulties, some of the things we've done for the so-called average child in a regular
Yes.
class. And I think it's going to take a long period of time because we have to prepare teachers, and we have to, I think, change a lot of attitudes among every teacher
Yes.
in the school. If you're going to mainstream or integrate or normalize, whatever word you use, all teachers in a school and all administrators have to have some knowledge of exceptionality. You just can't, and they have to be more tolerant, is a word I suppose I could use, more tolerant of handicapped children. And I'm not sure a lot of our educators are. So that process is very slow. You need specialized teachers, but you need that understanding among all teachers. Our school facilities, we've got to examine these and make sure that we make provisions for handicap. We, I suppose, eliminate architectural barriers. We've got to have money. We've got to have support services. You can't just take children with severe handicaps from specialized schools, put them into regular classes, unless you have support services, unless you have teachers who are prepared to work with social workers in the community. And to develop these kinds of working relationships takes a lot of time. So I would like for us to plan it over the next few years, and we have to target it. I think we have to.
Yes.
The government should, and the Department of Education should say, we're going to do this over the next 4 or 5 years. Here's what we're going to do initially, and here's what we're going to do to integrate children, to mainstream. Here's what we're going to do for special schools, because you're still going to need special
Some
schools
special
in the
schools,
system,
yes,
and
certainly.
special classes.
Do you see the present educational administrator, with the training that he has available to him, fulfilling this role without any difficulty, or would
No, I
he need
think-
additional?
No, I think we need additional training. I think there are some. I know a number of administrators who have this kind of tolerance and have these understandings and this knowledge and these special skills. But I think we've got to introduce a program of pre-service program. We've got to look at our graduate programs, and possibly more important in terms of the province is a program of in-service education. And that needs to be planned very carefully. Not every principal is going to do a graduate program. Now, if they're here doing a graduate program, we can have them do some courses in learning theories or in special education. We can have exchange of students, teamwork in the faculty. But there are a lot of administrators who have done their degrees, who need upgrading, or who are not going to come and do graduate work. And I think this is where the province and the university have to work with the NTA and with school boards to plan a program of in-service education. that's ongoing, so that we kind of create the atmosphere, develop the knowledge and the skills that are necessary to implement that this principle that we've enunciated earlier.
Are there unique problems, Phil, that you would see in Newfoundland? I realize that going from into the pragmatics from the theory and the legislation is very good, and it'll take us time, and I certainly agree it'll take us probably well into the 80s to train the teachers and provide support services. The fact that it's happening here in Newfoundland, are there things that might make it unique, say, as compared to a prairie province or somewhere else in Atlantic Canada? Probably more the prairie provinces, I guess. The Atlantic Canada would have, I suppose, the same types of problems if there were.
There are 2 or 3 problems which may be unique or more pronounced in this province. One is that I think we've got a longer way to go. We've got to identify more people. There are quite a number of special education students getting help in the school system and in special schools, but we've got to have a more systematic means of identifying and evaluating those who are out not within the system at the present time. Another problem has to be the geography of the province, the distribution of the population. We have a lot of small communities and small schools. And this means that boards are going to have to transport students. Some students may have to live in residence. This creates special problems because children want to stay close to home, and I think we want to keep them close to home. But these create special problems. This is where interdenominational cooperation has to take place. There are many areas where one board can't provide a service. Then I think it has to look to other boards, possibly of other denominations, to offer kinds of special programs and special help to meet the needs of these children. And then there's the cost, of course. It's a very costly thing. And that means that the government has to provide a substantial amount of money if we're going to be able to provide the programs needed.
One point in connection with basically, I suppose, interdenominational, I think Grand Falls, Wayne, with the trainable retarded children, they have one class that all denominations will attend. So there's very good cooperation.
There are examples of it, and I think this is encouraging. And where you have specialist teachers, you may have to share these. You cannot put an elevator in every school. We've got a lot of older schools. It's a very costly thing to put in. So we may have to put for physically handicapped elevators in a selection of schools. Provide the toilet facilities, for example, for the physically handicapped. This takes time, and it's costly, so we may have to have more inter-district cooperation if that's going to be successful.
Right. Almost within regions, I expect people to have to work together. I think if we started trying to work at cross-grain to the geography of the province and cross that with denominationalism, it could be much more difficult to provide the services, where with the spirit of cooperation, I think this could come about.
Regional services, I think this is one thing that we haven't developed in this province that other provinces have introduced, kind of regional services like speech therapists.
Yes.
And various other kinds of very specialized personnel that boards can't afford. It may be that we have to introduce a kind of a regional system and have some leadership at the regional level to get boards to work more closely and share their services so that children don't have to leave their community and go to long distances unnecessarily at a great expense to parents and to others. So maybe we need to look at this concept of a number of regions in this province and have at the regional level a number of specialized people who are just too expensive to have at a school district or a school level.
It could be shared by the various
Shared
schools.
by various schools
Certainly
and
that
school
would,
districts.
I'm sure everyone would be very much in favor of that as
Yes,
a
especially
cooperative effort.
you mentioned speech therapist. I think the accepted ratio, Wayne, is what, 1 to 5,000 population, and
That's probably the area of most outstanding need in the province now in terms of speech therapy. Very few.
Well, there are a lot of support services in the community too that we've got to make available to the schools, and administrators have to not only seek them out, but provide an opportunity so that we can use the very specialized services that now exist, because again, it's going to be very costly to get all the services we need. We should have that goal, but we should use what we now have, and there are many areas in this province where I think we can get volunteers, where there are people who may help in a well-planned program of special ed if administrators were to tap the local resources. Volunteers, paraprofessionals, clerical assistants to help, because all of these things are going to be necessary if we're going to provide individualized educational programs, IEPs, I guess is your term.
In terms of
If we're going to provide these, keep parents involved, keep them informed, have good record systems, we're going to need a variety of support services. And I think if we had well-planned leadership programs, then we could get to these, some on a voluntary basis.
I suppose the administrator could tap the community base, because with the whole thrust in terms of normalization, integration, it's into the community. And if these people are eventually going to leave the schools, whether it's a special class, whatever the facility, it'd be nice to involve the community in their education as well.
Yeah, I think it's good to involve the school, the community in the school for all children. This is one thing I might say. As a result of this piece of legislation, this may have a positive effect on all aspects of education, because we should provide for every child
Yes.
individual programs. Now, we can't do it in the same way we do for handicapped children. So out of this amendment and out of the trends in the United States and elsewhere in Canada, we may find that benefits accrue to all aspects of our program, not just for handicapped and children who are disadvantaged.
Just sort of going back for a moment, you mentioned earlier about in-service training and graduate programs. In what direction did you see those going with regard to special education? I think that you're basically saying there has to be more awareness on the part of the administrator of the
Sure.
exceptional child and so on.
Yeah. It's important that all in-service programs be developed to meet the needs of the teachers and the people involved. I think often we superimpose in-service programs. The administrator says this is what's needed, or Memorial University says this is what's needed. We go out and we superimpose. It's vitally important that we design programs that meet the needs of the people in the field. I see Memorial playing a much more active role in the future. I think we have to recognize that pre-service at Memorial is only part of our job, and that we must provide resources so that we can work with boards, with the NTA, in the development of in-service programs to meet the needs of teachers throughout the province. Our staff have to be available to do this, and it should be looked at as a regular part of their responsibility. In that process, I think our departments must work together. Psychology and guidance must work with educational administration. Curriculum, we must work with them. We can look at a team approach to in-service education, because we tend to get compartmentalized in education.
Yes.
We're very education is has a cellular character, in that teachers get into their classroom, and at the university we get into our departments. And I think if we're going to serve the needs of students, we've got to work together more closely. In the school system, teachers with teachers, teachers with parents, teachers with social workers, administrators with them all. And we at the university should work together in providing services, research, doing research, providing in-service education, providing graduate programs to meet the needs of the educational system. So there are a number of things we can do in in-service education, Wayne, and I think we're on the road. I don't want to be
I think so too.
too
No,
critical of what we've not done. I think we're on the road, and I see some evidence that our faculty will meet the challenge of providing services for teachers and helping teachers.
I think people will perceive it as a tremendous challenge. Legislation like this always means a lot of work and so on, and it requires a lot of motivated people to carry it off. But I have faith that it'll come. Or at least, as you say, we're on the road now, and that's certainly a step forward.
Yeah, it's a challenge and an opportunity, and we hear a lot about offshore resources. I still keep saying that
That's
our
right.
children, our onshore resources are more important than our offshore, and our children are our greatest resource. And that means all children.
That's certainly something
now
the
we're-
province should keep in mind in this
certainly
time of
should.
expansion and so on.
We may even have to design new methods of delivering our courses as well, Phil. I was thinking, instead of some of the more remote areas of the province, it may be not very realistic to go in and say, okay, we're going to have one course and that'll be 36 hours. It may be difficult to get everybody together for 36 hours or 3 hours a week and such. But it may be quite easy to develop a modular approach somehow, maybe through the use of educational television, so that you come up with 5 hours, and a 5-hour module is available on this particular day, or it's in the community, and you take your time working through that module, and then when you finish that, you can do the second module. I think there are probably different changes will
That
have
has
to come.
That has to come. And I think we've got the technology here at the university and the potential. We've done some great things. So let's use it to serve the needs of people who need it most in the remote parts of the province. We've got to reach out because a lot of people come in and do classes on campus. The real challenge of the 80s at Memorial is to reach out and help the people who just can't, physically travel, or who using the media and using technology to better serve the needs. Another thing I think we've got to do is to change our teaching techniques. We don't have in the Faculty of Education a division for training teachers of adults. A lot of us still teach in the way we were taught and lecture and so on. And I think if we're going to help teachers, we've got to work with them in small groups as well as large groups. The in-service program should use new strategies. Rather, teacher centers, for example, have great potential for working with teachers, and we can possibly offer non-credit and credit courses, non-credit courses through teacher centers in various parts of the province. The challenge is there, and the opportunity, and I think we're going to have the resources, hopefully, with the oil and,
Yes.
and the fish of this province. We're going to have the resources to do things for these areas and these students whom we've neglected somewhat in the past.
Yes.
Not deliberately, just as a matter of course.
Well, there's only been so much money to go around, I suppose, and in some cases other things have taken priority over this type of thing, education and special education.
And
such.
we've done a great deal. We've got some creative teachers. I'd like to pay tribute to the Division of Special Services at the Department of Education. They've done outstanding work, I think, despite the lack of resources in developing special education.
They certainly work
Yes,
hand in
yes.
glove with the
Sure they
university
are.
in our
Yes.
program.
Sure
They've
they
been
are.
very supportive. And
Yes, we
It's
couldn't
a
ask
good mutual
for
relationship.
any more
No,
help from them.
certainly.
They've been excellent as far as we're concerned.
yes.
We can support that. Well, I think, Phil, what we'll do now is to turn to some of the cascades, some of the charts, have a look at the charts, get your views on Dino's cascade initially, and then we'll look at the Twin Peak cascade and see how they relate to special education. So we'll go now, first of all, Wayne, I think,
Fine.
to Dino's cascade.
Right. All right, if you'll just look at your monitor, you'll see Dino's Cascade System of Special Education Services. I realize that you can't read all of that at this point, but it's all right. We'll be going to a close-up on different parts as we go through. The general form of this sort of funnel shape form, gives us the various levels of support services for special education children. And it was developed during the 1970s by a person named Dino to implement, to look at the types of programs that were coming, and as we see coming into existence now in the 80s. If we look at just the very base of this, possibly we could maybe just move in on this. At the very bottom here, we have homebound programs and special stations. This takes in all the types of facilities for children who are severely handicapped, in some case severe mental handicap, sometimes it's a case that is severe physical handicap. But these are children who cannot take part in the regular school system. And their instruction, or their schooling, if you like, instead of instruction, takes place in the hospital or in a residential institution, or in some place where they are provided with total care. Possibly it's a child who is not physically able to attend school. Maybe he requires, say, 24-hour medical assistance and medical type of facilities which are attached to his condition. As we move up, we find that we move from the special stations into full-time special classes. And during the 1950s, the 60s, and part of the 70s, certainly this was the most prevalent type of facility for special children, where they were put in their own class full-time with their own teacher in a special education class. Then as we move up, you see, we come to part-time special classes. So you can see that the children are starting to move out from the special class and only part-time in special class, and out into other parts of the school for the parts of their program. Moving up, we have the children now not spending most of the time in special class, as was the case here, but spending most of their time in the regular class, but having some supplementary work in the special class or the resource room or whatever. And as we move up again, exceptional children we find in irregular classes with or without supportive services. And so these children are really, what you could say, are being integrated to a high degree at this point. Of course, at the very top is Dino makes reference to the prevention of handicapping conditions and handicapping behavior, so the child does not need special services. Now, if we could just maybe go to the full shot, if we could, of the picture, of the model, we see that it's funnel shaped, and certainly at the base it's much narrower. at the very top here, the prevention of handicap conditions, it's much broader. Ideally, this is what we will have. This would represent the number of children involved. We'd have much fewer children in the homebound type of instruction, and most of the children being in the regular class. And you can see that what we are doing is gradually moving from the smaller base here into a much more integrated type of approach to education. And as indicated on the chart itself, it says, return this way as rapidly as feasible. And I think that's what we're doing. And I think these are some of the things that Dr. Warren is talking about, that we are trying to return children who traditionally were homebound or full-time special education into facilities which are possibly much less restrictive. On the other side here, and we still have to remember that there will be children whose classes who will not have the abilities to move into the regular class. These children will have to stay in at least a partially integrated model, maybe part-time or even full-time in some cases in special education. And we have what we says here is move this way only as far as necessary. So the cascade represents various levels. It also represents the number of children by the width of the part of the funnel where the caption is, and this represents the direction we're going. And this is the direction which is, if we are going to move in this direction, it's important that we do have the educational facilities and the administrative support system to look at this. I think the next thing we should do possibly is look at a model, if we can, which would incorporate this type of integration into an administrative structure.
You have before you now a model of what we call the Twin Peak Cascade for the administration of special services. The system is similar to an ordinary administrative setup. You would start off with a director of education, an assistant director of education would come next, and then here's where we come to the change. You would have superintendents of exceptionality for a bigger system with the assistant superintendent of exceptionality special here. This person would be responsible for administering the program for the special child who remains in either special classes or special schools. On the other side, you would have the assistant superintendent regular. This superintendent would be responsible for administering the program for special education students who are in the regular program. And so these are the two main differences here. Let's look first of all at the special section. In this one, as Dr. Nesbitt pointed out, we have residential schools, residential treatment centers, and so on. We are suggesting that the principal and vice principal of these schools and these treatment centers have courses in exceptionality. Now, if you look at the chart in your manual, you'll actually see what we recommend in terms of the number of courses that each should have. Going down again to the special day schools, here again, principal and vice principal with courses in the area. The home and hospital instruction, curriculum consultants as well, they should have courses in the area. And you get down to the last one on this peak, the full-time special education class placements in the regular school. Both the principal and the vice principal and the special education consultants, curriculum consultants, should in fact have courses in this area. If we move over to the other side of the chart, this section dealing with the special child in the regular school, we find that we have part-time special class placement. Here again, the principal and the vice principal, now these are people who are in the regular school and the curriculum consultants. All of these people should in fact have courses in exceptionality. Then we go to the regular program, and this can be coupled with either an itinerant consultant or a resource room scheduled with an individual special program. Here again, if this type of program is in operation in a regular school, then the principal, the vice principal, the curriculum consultants all should have courses in exceptionality. And if you look here again at your chart in your manual, you'll see just how many that we recommend. And then you get up to your regular program, your principal, your vice principal, your curriculum consultants, again, should have courses in exceptionality. So this is what we are recommending here then for this. It's a twin peak. On the one hand, you have the assistant superintendent looking after the special children in the special classes, and on this side here, we have the assistant superintendent who in fact is looking after the special child but in the regular class. We feel that with integration, there is now a tremendous increase in the number of children who are in special classes, or rather who are integrated from special classes into the regular school, and it's very difficult for the one superintendent to be involved with both the special and the regular. So we are advocating a breakdown. As Dr. Nesbitt mentioned to you in connection with Dino's Cascade, what we aim for here as well is to follow this procedure, to go in this direction, go down from the residential school through the special day schools, through the home and hospital instruction, down to the full-time special education class. That is a preferable movement, and we go from this one down again from the part-time special class, the regular program coupled with itinerant consultants, resource room with special programs, down to the regular program. This is a direction we want to aim for going down here. We only go in the opposite direction from the regular program to a part-time special class. We only go in that direction or this direction up here if we have to. It's a type of situation that we try to stay away from. We want to keep the children in the regular class or as close to it as we possibly can. So this then is what we call the Twin Peak Cascade for the administration of special services. We would also like to thank at this time the journal The Canadian Administrator for allowing us to use this chart in our program. That's it for educational administration. Thank you.
Fine, Phil. Now that you've had a chance to look at Dino's Cascade and what exists, I guess, in terms of administrative structure to support integration, and had a look at the Twin Peak sort of thing, have you any reactions to that, or any final comments you'd like to give us?
I like the idea of models. I like looking at models anyhow, but
Yes.
These, I think, put a lot of information together, and I'm glad that you've written an article to outline what these are and the kind of implications of them. My reaction is that they suggest directions into which we should be moving, towards which we should be moving.
Mm-hmm.
Moving from classrooms and special classes into regular classes where possible, from special
Yes.
schools into regular classrooms and special classes in regular schools.
Mm-hmm.
These kinds of directions are suggested there, and I think the implications for administrators clearly stated. Administrators in the future, if they're going to give leadership in all areas of education, have to be more knowledgeable about exceptionality, and that they need programs and courses to do it. But I think the value of the model is that it ties a lot of these concepts that we mentioned earlier together, provides a framework by which we can move, towards which we can move, suggest guidelines that we should use. And I was very impressed with it, and with the article that both of you wrote about the implications of these for administrators.
Thank you. We're special educators rather than administrators, so we appreciate your comments. Phil, I'd like to thank you for coming with us today and talking about educational administration. As we mentioned, it's not really our field, so we feel very pleased when we get an expert of your caliber to come in and talk it over with us. Thank you very much.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you.